Hey guys, Professor Benson here. Just going to show you how to do this spreadsheet exercise. So what I've got here is 20 students, and I've just got a class here where I've assumed that there are 4 quizzes. There's a group project, a midterm, and a final. And then, of course, they're not equally weighted. So I'm going to say the quiz total is out of 10%, the group project's out of 20%, the midterm's 30%, and the final is out of 40% of the total grade. Okay, and now we're going to I want to do some descriptive statistics about this class, and then on the final exam, we're going to see how many scored. I'm going to do this out of percentages, so this is how many people got between 90% and 100%, 80 and 89%, and so on. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do is create these columns with the percentages. So, and then whoops, right up here, I'm just going to show you, this is the points possible. So this quiz was out of 10 points. So there's 40 points for the quizzes total. The group project is out of 25 points. The midterm is out of 50, and the final is out of 75 points. So we're going to create, this one we'll just call midterm percentage, and I'll go ahead and wrap that. So I could do this 42 divided by this cell here with the 50. I'm just actually going to do it divided by 50 here, and then all the way down. We'll just leave it as a percentage just like that. I'll do final percentage. So we'll just rename this, and this is out of 75 points. No, sorry, this is why I do it out of. Okay, so that's out of 75, and now when I do it, there we go. I'm going to insert 2 rows here just so you know, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit clear all to get rid of those formats. And that's because I want to show you something down here. This is going to be very, very similar to this in-class exercise that we did where I calculated, and then I'll move me out of the way here. So that you can see this box and whisker plot and this bar chart right here. Okay, so it's going to be a lot like this one. This one was called the in-class student scores. Okay. Now I've got, so I'm back here. I'm going to kind of slide myself here to the right. Okay, so I've got the midterm percentage, the final percentage. Okay, we need to do the group project percentage. Okay, which is equal to 21 divided by 25, the 25 right there. Okay. Boom. All right, and then we're going to do the quiz percentage. Okay. Oops. Okay. All right, so now I've got quiz percentages, I've got group, I've got midterm percentage, and I've got final percentage. I'm going to go ahead and name all of these ranges. So I'm going to call this one with the final percentage. Without using the header, I'm going to call that final underscore percent. I'm going to call this midterm percent. Group project or group percent. I could also just shorten that to PCT, and then quiz percent. Okay. Now, if you mess up on any of those and you need to fix them, then you go up here to formulas, and there's a name manager. It looks a little bit different if you are in a Mac, but essentially you can edit the range. You can delete it and start over. But if I made a mistake on it, I can actually just in here change the cells that it refers to. So if I accidentally included the header, for example, and I needed to get rid of that, that's how you do it. So again, that is going to be up here on formulas, and then that's the name manager. Okay, so now I've got all these percentages. So right now, let's go ahead and what I want to do, so N means count, like how many, and I should have 20 because I've got 20 students. So in all of these, I should just say this is equal to count, okay, and we'll do quiz percent. This guy is going to equal count group percent equals count midterm. Okay, and I label them percent just so that I know it's referring to the percent. If I wanted one with the score, I could just label, like call it like final score or final exam or something like that. And then this one is going to equal the count final. Okay. Now, the mean is again the average, so I'm going to say the average. And this is the quiz percent. Okay. And then I could actually, I can copy this down, and so instead of doing mean, now I will do median. So median is, remember, the 50th percentile, so half of them are going to be above that and half will be below that. The min, so I'll change median here to min. I've got max. Okay, so the quiz scores, and again, I created these randomly, so they went from 40% to 85%. 85%. Okay, now P25 stands here for the 25th percentile. So this is going to be the score. So 25% of the scores will be less than or equal to this score, and so 75% will be above it. The way the so we went over this in class today, but there's several formulas here: percentile, exclude, include, and percentile. This one that's percentile.inc and the percentile, those are the same. It's just that this is the one that was there from Excel 2007 and earlier, and this is what they've renamed it to. But the one that you are going to want to use in life and that matches to the formula in the book is this one that's called percentile.exe. Okay, and we're going to do that. Whoops, we're going to do that one for the quiz total, quiz percent. Okay, and then the second part of this formula says, okay, so it says I want where are the scores, and then K means what's the percentile, and you have to put it as 0.25 for the 25%, 25th percentile. So not 25, 0.25. Okay, and then I can do the same thing down here for 75th percentile. Okay, and then standard deviation and the variance. The standard deviation that we're going to want to use, that you're going to normally want to use is this one that's .s for sample. So even though technically this is the population of students, like the population that I care about are just these 20 students, because the old formula that was in 2007 is based on a sample, and because this is what, if we use the descriptive statistics function in Excel, it will give us, that's what we're going to use here. So this standard dev.s, okay, and again, we're going to use quiz percent, okay, and then this is going to equal variance. Whoops. And again, we're going to use the one based on a sample. Okay, so it's var.s for a sample quiz percentage. Okay, now if we've done this right, the standard deviation is just the square root of the variance. So if I say equals square root of that, I should get the same number, okay, if you've done that correctly. Actually, I will leave that as just like that. Okay, now we're just going to do the same thing for each of the others. So I could do this one of two ways. This is the group underscore percent, but literally I could just copy and paste that, and I could just go in each of these and say this is the group percent, or I can actually select all and do Control H, which is find replace, and I'm going to find, what are we going to find here? Quiz underscore percent, and replace with group underscore percent. Okay, and let's just make sure. So group percent, group percent, group percent. And then on the group project, yes, these two guys got 100%, so that is the max. Okay. Same thing here. Alternatively, I could just drag that down, and then instead of it being the count, we'll do the average, the median, set on midterm percent, the min, the max. Okay, so this one, since it's two numbers, I'm going to actually just go in here and we're going to do, what are we doing, midterm percent. So I'm going to collect that, and it's the 25th percentile, and it's moved it over there. Okay, I'll change this to 75th percentile. Okay, this is standard deviation of, okay, so we'll do, okay. Now, you might say, why am I doing this over and over again? I just want to show you how easy it is, and that, you know, you're going to have to do a couple of these by hand for the quiz, but this is why we invented software, right? We are, I don't want people doing these by hand because that's prone to mistakes. I want people doing this by, you know, using Excel, using the software. So let's see. So the variance, we'll just put this down, and we ended up doing, we want equals var, and we want the standard deviation one. Okay, and then we will do, so that's midterm percent. I could actually copy and do that, and now I could do, so it's midterm underscore percent. Since those are, so I've got midterm underscore, and I'm going to replace it with final underscore percent. Okay. Now let's just go ahead and on all of these, I'm going to make them percent and a single decimal place. Now let's just go ahead and make sure average, final percent, median. So if I do median, final percent. Okay. So that should give us what we want. Okay. Now, what I'm going to have you do next is we're going to, the first thing I'm going to have you do is actually we're going to go ahead and I'm going to create a box-and-whisker plot or a box plot of this final exam score. So I'm going to select final percent all the way down. We're going to go up to insert and chart. And the chart we're going to do, we're going to say all charts, and the box-and-whisker is down here. Okay. Now we're going to rename this in just a second. And then I'm going to go ahead and hide myself so that you don't see it. But and then I will label this in just 1 second. But this is the final exam. I'm just going to call this, whoops. So if I select all the stuff in there, I'm going to say box plot of midterm and final, just because we're going to add the final exam here in a second. So I'm going to zoom in here. Okay. Now you'll see that X. So what a box and whisker plot shows us is so that this bottom line is the 25th percentile, which is 68%. So that's where that is. This top line here is the 75th percentile, which it says is 86%. Good. This straight line right there is the median, which is 78%. The X is the average, and the average is a little bit lower than the median here because this point is an outlier. So this is our minimum, which is this 37.3. This poor person just bombed the final. Now, I deliberately put somebody that low so that this range will have at least one person below 40%. But that is what this is giving us. So it's giving us a lot of information right here. Then if I want to add, more data, so now I want to add, I'm going to zoom back out. If I want to add the midterm percentage just to see how the spread looks, I'm going to right click here somewhere and I'm going to say select data. Okay, so final percentage is one of the data series. I'm going to go ahead and add one. The series name, I could call it whatever I wanted, or I could point to that, which is midterm percentage. Okay, and then the series values are this down to there. Okay, so I've got a final and a midterm. We'll hit OK. And then now I'm going to go up here to design and I'm going to add the chart element. So I'm going to do, I'm going to add the axis titles. And so we'll put this one up here that just says that this is, just do scores or score. Okay. And then I'm going to do up here and I'm going to add a legend at the bottom so that it tells, and I'm going to delete this number 1. So now it's telling me that this blue is the final and that the orange is the midterm. Okay. We won't worry about these dots right now, but this is the box, and then this line, the T shape, is the whisker. And it either is going to give you the max or it's going to they call it a gate, but it'll give you some dots if there are outliers that are either high or low. Okay, so you're going to leave this chart in because I'm going to look for it. Okay, now what we want to do turn myself back on. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I want to score for the final exam how many scored in each range. So less than 40%, between 40 and 49%, 50 and 59, and so on. So I can do this. We're going to use a COUNTIF to do this, but I want to do it with, I could do this manually, but I would rather do it as, so I'm going to call that 0 and 40%. If yours doesn't automatically put in the percent there, all we're going to do is I'm going to put here 40 and a percent, or you can type 0.40. So now I've got 50%, 60%, and of course I can just, bring that on down. Okay. And I'll just put this here, and this will be 100%. Okay, so what I want to do is count how many are in each of these ranges. Now, on this first one, I could do it manually. I can say count if, and we'll say the final percent. And I could say, if I use a number, this is kind of the tricky thing. If I use a number, I'm going to put it in quotes, and I'm going to say less than 40%. Okay, so less than 40%, And there should be one. There's this this one right there that scored the 37%. Now, for the rest of these, so if you manually put it in, the number, and if I wanted it to be less than just the number 40, I wouldn't put that percentage sign, and it's saying all of them. So I'm going to do again, COUNTIF, final percentage, and I'm going to say less than 40%, and then put it in quotes. Okay. Now, that is always a weird one to me, because normally when I think of stuff between quotes, I think of text, but Excel actually has you put numbers there. Okay. Now, if I want to say what's between 40 and 50%, you'll notice here I say 40 to 49, but I've got 50% here because this is a percentage, and some of them will have decimals. I'm going to say greater than or equal to 40, but less than 50. Not less than or equal to, but just less than 50. So the way I do that, if now I'm going to refer to a cell, we're going to do COUNTIFs, because we're going to have multiple conditions. Okay, so it's going to say the criteria range, which is final percent. Okay, we're going to say, quote, greater than or equal to, and now since I'm pointing it to a cell, this is tricky. Pay attention to this. I'm going to close the quote, and then I'm going to point to a cell, you do ampersand, or ampersand, I forget how you say that, and I'm going to point it to this cell, comma, and then I'm going to say final percent is less than, but not equal to, less than ampersand the 50%, the cell P26. Okay? So again, if I look up here, I've got greater than or equal to O26, the 40%, but less than the P26. And if you forget to put the ampersand, I think it's going to, let's just see what happens. It's going to throw an error. So I'm going to go ahead and put that ampersand back. Okay. Now I should be able to just see if I add a filter here that I have numbers greater than or equal to, I'm going to call it 0.4 and less than 0.5, and there's just that one. Okay, so I can double check that. Okay. Now, I've done this in a way because I know we're going to be having a mistake right here with the 90 to 100, so I just want to show you. This is why I always add it up, which is it's adding to 18, but I know there are 20 students who took the final, and I can double check that by highlighting this, and you'll notice down here in the bottom right corner it's telling me the average is 75%, which is what we got. There's 20 of them, and then what it adds up to. And this is because with 100%, we actually just, for 100%, we could do this as just greater than 90 and leave it at that, or I can say it's less than or equal to 100% because it was missing this one that was 100% and this one. Okay, so the formula is different, so I could just say it's greater than 90%, but I've got it greater than or equal to 90%, and here I say less than or equal to 100% because we do actually have a couple scores that are 100%. Okay. Now, if I want the percentage of people in each of these categories, I'm going to do equals this divided by 20. And I'm going to use F4, or it's Command T on a Mac, but F4 to make it an absolute reference. And this should sum up to 100%. Okay, and then the cumulative percentage just says is the running total of how many are in each of these categories. And so the very first one, you know, they're 5%. This one is the 5% we got before plus their 5%, you know, one person got between 40 and 49. This is the 10% plus one more person got between 50 and 59, and so on down the line. Or I can just drag that down. And here it's going to add up to 100% here because everybody got less than or equal to 100. Okay? So leave the formulas in each of these so I can double check to make sure to see how you did it. I'm going to, let's see, if I move myself, I'll just leave it here for right now. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and hide it. Okay, now if I want to do, what I want to do is I'm going to select this whole range and this count because I want to add in a bar chart. So we're going to do here, we're going to do this clustered column. Okay, so this is we'll just call this a breakdown of final exam scores. Okay, and then if I label my axes here, this is count of students. So this is the count of the students who got within that range. And then what we'll call this is, I'm going to add a horizontal one here. So I'm up on design, add chart element, and we'll call this, score. We'll call these bins. Okay. Now, we'll just go ahead and stick that right there. Okay, now I'm going to stick it, I'm going to put it right here so that we can see this as we're going to do two things. I want you to add, you're going to right click and add the data labels, which is actually just going to give me the number of scores in each of these categories. Okay, and then if I right click on it and I want to do format the data series, I'm going to change this gap width. So the smaller I make, this is making the gap between the lines narrower, and we're going to make that at 50%. And that's just a personal preference. I prefer the lines wider and the gap narrower, but so we're just going to go ahead and slide that right there. So that the nice thing about it is this is a nice breakdown of how many people got each of these scores. Okay, oops, Control Z that. All right, so now I'm going to slide this guy over here. So you've got that there. Okay, so now I'm going to, now what we're going to do is we're going to do this for student 1. So I just want to show you if I want to find the student's weighted average. So he got, what, 24 points on the quiz. He got 21 on the group project, equal to 42 points on the midterm. Again, this is student 1 right here. And then he really did great on the final. Okay, and then this percentage, I could just point to it, or I can say it's equal to this divided by, what was this quiz out of 40? This is equal to that divided by 25. Okay, equal to 42 divided by 50 points. So we got 84% on both the quiz and the midterm, and then it's equal to 71 divided by 75. Okay, now if I were to just take the average of this, okay, he would only get 80.7%, and that's because those quizzes are really pulling him down. If I want to do the weighted average, I'm going to multiply. I could do this two ways, but the way I'm going to have you do it is I'm going to multiply this 60% by its weighting to get my weighted average. So I'm going to say it's equal to this times that. Okay, and now if I sum this up, okay, he actually is going to get in the class 85.87%, and I could, if I wanted to, I could then have you do a VLOOKUP that actually brought over the grade. Is that a B, a B+, whatever that is. But I could bring that over, and so what this is doing is it's putting more weight, of course, a lot more weight on the fact that he did better on the final than he did on the quizzes. Okay, and so if I made these, and now since it's all linked, if I were to change this weighting, you could get a different score. So you're going to leave the, so this is the unweighted average, meaning it's weighting them all equally. And here I'm actually, I'm putting 4 times as much weight. It's putting 4 times as much weight on the final as it is on the quiz, and twice as much as on the group project. Okay, so again, you're going to rename this and upload it, and then you are going to, I'm going to have a few questions on it that you're just going to answer based on these cells. So, and again, your numbers will be a little bit different than this because I have changed a few of the numbers. So yours will be a little bit different, but this is what you're doing. So I hope this helps, and good luck.